What's up, Ego Hackers? This is CS Joseph, and this is Season 29, Episode 5, How to Master Your Demon, Introvert Intuition, or How to Master Your Demon. How to Master Your Demon, it's been a good season so far. This is Episode 5 out of 8. We've been having a lot of different reactions from a lot of people in the audience to these particular episodes. Some people are finding them extremely eye-opening, using them to solve problems within their lives, etc., or help them discover strength that they never knew that they had, or at least never gave themselves permission to use. And quite frankly, that is what this episode is all about, How to Master Your Demon at Night. It's about getting yourself to the point where you can give yourself permission to allow yourself to use your introvert intuition demon. And that's something I've noticed has been really hard for SI heroes, because all SI heroes are affiliative between ISTJs and ISFJs. They really oftentimes just don't give themselves that level of permission to be able to use their NI demon. And I think one of the main reasons why is because of all of the negative social blowback that they would get typically when it comes to them using their introvert intuition demons. And this can be especially difficult for SI hero men, because if they don't use their NI demon on a consistent basis, they're automatically seen as more beta male by the rest of society, especially women. Which means SI hero men get laid a lot less than other men because of this issue. So before I begin, I would like to say that this episode, if there's anything that you take from this episode, this is me giving you permission to use your NI demon in whatever situation in which you are inclined to do so, because it is healthy. It's healthy that you turn your demon into an angel. And remember, treat others the way you want to be treated. That applies especially to your demon function, because it is the hero function, basically, or the apex of your superego. The superego being the other person that's living in your head. Even though you technically have 4 people living in your head due to the 4 sides of the mind, but the thing is, the only other ego in your head, whereas the subconscious and the unconscious are not egos, the only other actual ego in your head is the superego. And it's important to not only make peace with that superego, but really establish a partnership with that ego, with the superego. That itself, having that partnership and being on the same team as the superego, that is what is going to give you access to the angelic divine power that your demon function uses, or your angelic function uses, and then you'll be a lot happier in your life, because you're able to get so much more done in your life. And it's not just productivity, it's literally everything that you've ever wanted, potentially you could have. And introvert intuition demon it's kind of a little bit interesting, because it's got a, I mean, if anyone's ever going to make the argument for the law of attraction, etc., it would be NI demon for sure. Absolutely NI demon. Especially when you look at cognitive orbit with expert intuition inferior, and then when it goes aspirational mode, it's all of a sudden attracting everything else to it. It's like this giant magnet. It's going come closer, come closer, come closer, etc. Without actually having to go seek anybody out. It has people coming to them and seeking them out on a consistent basis. And honestly, this is just something that a lot of people don't understand about introvert intuition demon. And I think that's because it probably is the most misunderstood demon function, because society is just content to let SI heroes just be their little worker bees and be their slaves, etc., and let them take their low pay, and then they get all their time instead, and they just don't have anything left for themselves. And that can be really, really, really frustrating, especially given how systematic ISJs are. And that systematism allows society to just basically take advantage of them indefinitely. And that's true of gender dynamics. That's true of at work for their business. It's also true in their family, etc. And it can lead to an insanely high amount of bitterness. It could also lead to vengeance as a result of that high bitterness, which could inhibit inhibit the SI hero and their growth, especially with their relationships with other people, because it will literally destroy opportunities for them. And that's what Anti-Demon does. It destroys opportunities for the SI hero because it's just angry at the SI hero. It just hates the SI hero. Now, why? Well, it's because the demon function, it wants to be the hero. It wants to be sitting on the throne of your mind eventually. It wants to be there in control. But a lot of the time, people don't, give them that opportunity. And it remains locked away in the abyss of your soul. And the abyss basically is the superego. That is the abyss of your soul. And it's locked away. And the hero has the power, the hero function has the power to let the demon out or throw the demon back in there, etc. And sometimes the demon escapes because it enlists the help of other functions, especially the infant or the inferior function, to use that as its get out of jail card, etc. And that's why it's able to, get out and be in that situation and just kind of do what it does, basically. So a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't understand that. And like I said, treat others the way you want to be treated. If you want your demon to become an angel, you have to treat it like an angel, a guardian angel, which means you are going to have regular communion with your internal demon, with your internal superego, and actually enlist its help for real. And actually spend time listening to it, which is extremely hard for an SI hero to do. Extremely hard. In fact, I think having Anti-Demon is probably one of the hardest things. I think it's way harder than SE Demon. I think it's harder than any extroverted demon. I think Anti-Demon is probably the hardest demon to bear. I think it's the biggest burden out of all of them, even though it's so easy to give into at times. But I really think it's super difficult. And the reason why is it really comes down to conditioning and socialization of Introverted Sensing Hero. Introverted Sensing Hero ends up becoming the person who not only maintains, but also purports, supports, and puts forward anything that's considered common sense. The affiliative itself, SI Hero is a pillar of the affiliative, and it's even willing to shut its own eyes. Oh, I can't see you, so you can't see me, when it comes to affiliative and accepting those ideas. It's especially bad for ISFJs because ISFJs have a tendency to allow the affiliative or social norms to determine their own thinking, and not the other way around. And they spend their entire life trying to learn how to allow their own thinking to determine social norms and not the opposite. Because all FJs have this problem where they allow social norms to determine their thinking. Because from their perspective, if it can't be true if it's not accepted. And that's wrong. And that's, as a close friend of mine would say, that basically means FJs are sheep. And they behave like sheep until they learn much later in life, after they've been screwed over so much, they learn to stop being sheep, basically. I just wish, my mother would figure that out, but I don't know if there's even still hope for her. So who knows? She's getting pretty old and not really able to learn those lessons. So with that being said, the process of transforming the demon into the angel is actually a very simple one, and the process itself, it really comes from, how I describe it, actually comes from the Rational Male when it comes to dealing with women, for example. It talks about the medium is the message. What women are saying is not really as important in terms of how or why they're saying it, basically. And you have to have that same perspective with your demon function, because your demon function, it's constantly in survival mode. It doesn't want to be locked away in jail in your mind all the time within the abyss. It wants to be out. It ultimately wants to be on the throne. It's like Prince John versus the Lionheart King, which is King Richard the Lionheart, etc., from Robin Hood. And Prince John is like the superego, and then when King Richard leaves and he hasn't come back yet, then the entire kingdom is turned into turmoil, high taxation, people are being taken advantage of. It's an absolute total hell. And Prince John rising to power is an example of anti-demon running to power. He gets insanely hedonistic. It's all about what he wants and what no one else wants. It doesn't matter. He already knows that nobody else wants him on the throne anyway, because everyone sees him as someone who's really weak, etc. But he himself thinks he's strong because he has suffered so much at the hands of, maybe his brother, King Richard, or other people in the kingdom who have a very low opinion of him. So he already feels unwanted by default. So it's like, well, if I'm not wanted or desired, I'm just going to do whatever I want anyway, because why does it matter, basically? And that's an example of an anti-demon archetype taking over the kingdom. And imagine that happening within your own mind. And to prevent that from happening, you have to end up having that relationship with Prince John and actually turn Prince John into a partner. And you're like, well, hold on, how do you do that? That sounds crazy. That no one respects Prince John. No one likes Prince John. No one wants to have anything to do with Prince John. That guy is weak, and he's super selfish, and he's like literally that guy that, if you're getting married, he'll expect the right of the first night with your new bride, etc. Like that. That's how depraved and selfish he is. All about what he wants, etc. So that could be a huge issue. That could be a huge problem. And based on that, like, it's really common. It's really common for SI heroes to do that. I mean, one of the worst directions that it can manifest is, like, for example, they work really hard. They put all of their effort into something because, they are the people who put in a lot of effort, if not the most effort. SI heroes and SI inferiors put in more effort than everybody else. And that can turn into a form of entitlement if you think about it, because it's like, hey, I put in a lot of effort, so I'm entitled to you doing something for me, or I'm entitled to society doing something for me, or I'm entitled to this. I should be allowed to want this because of how much effort I put into this particular situation, or this person, place, or thing, or at this job, or in this relationship, etc. They just end up having that point of view. And then they end up taking. And then they end up taking a lot more than they've even given in certain circumstances. Or they just, all inhibition that they had in their whole life is just completely thrown out the window for one night, and all of a sudden they're snorting coke in Vegas or something. And that could be a problem. That could be a serious problem. But it happens. And it especially happens when the ISTJ or the ISFJ are starved of desire. Starved of being, like, when they don't have people desiring them. The problem is that they have to get to the point to realize that the fact that they're so scarce themselves is what actually makes them desirable. And that can be really difficult for them to expect, especially, like, for example, if you have physical touch, love language according to the 5 love languages, etc. You have an SI hero man who doesn't feel wanted by his wife, etc. So basically all he really has to do to cultivate that desire, he just has to leave and take his attention away from his wife and put his attention on other people or his own hobbies, maybe even potentially other women, etc. And then all of a sudden, his SE hero wife notices, like, oh wait, there's competition now for his attention, and then all of a sudden that desire comes back, right? And that's how important that is. That is why that is an issue. That is why. That's how they cultivate desire. And that's why oftentimes extrovert intuition inferior is seen as like a coquette or a master of coquetry, basically, or they have to learn coquetry as a seductive style available to them within their arsenal as they get older. This is in the context of relationships. Well, it's actually no different from a professional setting as well, because ISJs put in so much effort in a professional setting that they so desperately want to be wanted by other people. And they really go out of the way to always ask permission and not forgiveness, because they're so afraid of being unwanted, which means they're so afraid of being fired, for example, right? And because they just really can't mentally deal with it. The problem is that the NI demon just feels completely and utterly suffocated by this behavior, that it loses all respect for the ego to begin with, because it sees the SI hero resting on the laurels of its own strength. The SI hero is able to endure. The SI hero is always able to have all these super strong habits, but for everybody else, basically, but not super strong habits for its own self. And it doesn't, and it's all about what everyone else wants. But why doesn't it have a habit of allowing itself to want something every now and then? And so, because of this, the anti-demon ends up not having its needs met. It becomes very angry over time. This is why I tell people you should probably feed your demon every now and then, or else it'll break out and destroy your life. I had a good friend of mine from church who ended up becoming my cousin-in-law. He married my cousin, who was an ESTP. He's an ISFJ. And that whole relationship just went completely down the toilet. And he just took the verbal abuse from her on a regular basis, didn't really challenge her on things, didn't really rock the boat because he was still scared of being unwanted. And it's because he put her on a pedestal. That could have been completely avoided if he's like, fine, if you're just going to go be that way, I'm going to go over here away from you, and I'm going to give my attention to other people. If he'd have done that, she would have respected him a lot more. And it's no different than in a relationship situation than it is in a professional situation, because the reality of the situation is that ISJs are so important in the workplace. They get so much done, and they do it right. They really, really do it right, especially from a working standpoint, because they want to be reliable and seen as somebody who is reliable. And they are reliable. They're, quite frankly, the most reliable workers out there, ISJs. There's no one more reliable in a professional setting than ISJs. And what they don't realize is that people within their organizations end up loving them and end up needing them because they are so pivotal to whatever is going on within the organization that they can actually start to exercise a little bit more freedom. But they're so afraid of getting fired and so afraid of getting unwanted that they don't exercise that freedom, which can cause, for example, a TI child from being stifled within an ISFJ because he's not willing or she's not willing to offer criticism to management when it needs to be happen, because either the customer is being hurt or some of their coworkers are being hurt. Maybe they themselves are being hurt and getting a bad experience, and they have the ability but they're afraid of even opening their mouth. Or, for example, an ISTJ doing the same thing, except they're more concerned about their status and their reputation. Oh, I don't want to have the reputation of being the problem child here within this organization, etc. And they take their reputation too seriously, right? And that continues to be a problem. It continues to, mount over time, like this huge mountain, like this huge burden over the ISTJ's head. It's ridiculous. And they end up missing out on life because they're so used to playing the affiliative game that they've completely forgotten that the endurance that they've built up within themselves to be able to play the affiliative game, to be able to endure, to be able to become the most reliable person on the team within the organization, such that there's no way in God's green earth they would ever actually get fired when they are just opening their mouth and being willing to be honest. Right? It's like they need permission to be honest, which is bullshit, and it causes their anti-demon to hate them more, basically. That's grossly inappropriate. It's also like a complete and utter lack of self-respect. And you just know that INTJ demon is like, where the fuck is your self-respect, ISFJs? Or the INFJ demon doing the same thing. Where the fuck is your self-respect? You're so strong, yet you lack self-respect entirely. Wow, you hypocrite. And this is what causes the anti-demon to hate the ego, because the ego just ends up being super prideful about how reliable it is, but it's really only reliable for the external, and it's not reliable for the internal. And this is why ISJs end up missing out on life, especially ISJ men. ISJ men especially seem to have a problem, especially and I've noticed this consistently within my coaching practice. My brother-in-law as well. It's been so difficult, so hard. I would say that ISJ men are probably the most difficult men to teach the concept of making themselves their own mental point of origin, or becoming the sun of their own solar system, the solar system being their life, where they determine the orbits of other people in life, because oftentimes they choose to be orbiters instead of having people orbit them. And it's extremely difficult to get them to understand these concepts, because it's as if they need permission from the external for them to have the self-respect to take care of the internal, basically. And this is what the anti-demon is trying to teach them. But it's not like they're going to listen to the anti-demon, because you have FI child superiority complex within the ISTJ, and you have TI child God complex within the ISFJ, and then both of them are telling me at the same time that that's the best way to do it because they're so systematic, which then lends them being further taken advantage of by the rest of life. Folks, ISJs, literally your anti-demon is trying to tell you, yes, be Mr. Reliable or be Miss Reliable, be the strongest. But if you're not spending that strength on yourself, at least the majority of the time, say like 60% of the time, you're a fucking loser. How much of your own attention do you spend on yourself? How much of your own strength or reliability do you spend on you? You spend it on everybody else in some capacity. That's funny because I actually had this conversation with my brother-in-law recently. He's an ISTJ, and he's like, "No, I spend it on me all the time. I end up going to the casino, and I end up going to a movie, or I'm always working on cars." And I'm like, yes, but you're always doing it with other people, or you're doing it for other people, so you're increasing your own status in terms of the eyes of other people. When you need to be doing it to increase the status within the eyes of your own self, basically. Or the ISFJ who feels worthless on a consistent basis because of their FI critic, etc. But the reality of that situation is that those feelings of I'm not good enough, that feeling of lack of worthiness, really is coming from the fact that they're spending their attention on everybody else and not themselves, and they're not allowing themselves to spend the attention on themselves. And they only allow themselves to spend attention on themselves, oftentimes, the majority of the time, especially within Western society, etc., when it comes to ISJs. It's also really bad in Eastern society, or Middle Eastern society, especially like under Islam or theocracy, because theocracy maintains the status quo of the affiliative in Middle Eastern countries, especially from an Islamic point of view, maybe even also from a Judaism point of view. But the Middle East, especially, with all its Islamic influence, they put the affiliative above them every single time, and then they end up recreating the same affiliative problems for the next generation. Honestly, generational sin passes through ISJs, ISJ parents, more than any other type, because they won't give themselves permission to live life because they're spending all their attention on everybody else instead of spending it on themselves, because they're resting on their laurels. Oh, look at me. I'm so strong. I'm so capable. I'm so reliable. I'm such a reliable hero that I can be the hero and give everyone else attention instead of putting attention on me where it should be the majority of the time, not just 40% of the time or less, which I've consistently seen on a regular basis. Like, they need to have some self-respect. And that's what the anti-demon is looking for. But you're not going to hear that from the anti-demon. Why not? Well, because FI child superiority complex and TI child God complex, they really struggle listening. They really struggle listening. And they're not going to listen to the demon. So the demon has to lie. Constantly. Lie. Oh, look, all these other people, like, they get what they want. Oh, that person doesn't want you. That person doesn't want you. They never invite you to anything, etc. Like, well, it's so funny. Like, have you offered their number or offered your number to them? Like, I was actually coaching an ISTJ man and an ISFJ man recently. They both had the same problem. It was hilarious. But they were complaining to me about how they're never asked out by girls. And I'm like, well, do those girls have your number? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, give them your number. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, if you want to be all coquettish and whatnot, if you want to be desired by women, guys, well, then get a fucking business card with your name and your number, or maybe your job title or whatever, or something interesting about you or something. Put it there. And then literally when you're out in public, hand a chick that you think is cute. Just go up to her and be like, hey, I thought you were cute. I don't have time really to talk right now, but here's my number. Shoot me a text sometime. And then just do that over and over again. It's like you're out there fishing, etc. You got your fishing rod, But the thing is like, you go out there and you give them your card, and then they will text you, they will call you. Like, I don't see ISJs, especially ISJ men, actually positioning themselves for greatness. Or I see ISJs, especially ISFJ women, being such shut-ins that they won't even go out and meet men and make themselves available. Or they won't even take care of themselves enough to realize that they need to, like, make themselves more desirable, etc. which is also really irresponsible, because the affiliative, what is socially acceptable around them, the affiliative is telling these ISJs that how they're behaving right now is okay and it's acceptable. That's just how it is. That's just regular reality. You're not going to be able to get any further than that, So honestly, you really have to get to the point where you're willing to hear the demon for what it's trying to say, not necessarily what it's actually going to say. Because the demon, introverted intuition demon, is going to blame everybody else for not wanting you, because it's just going to point out to you that no one wants you. But what it's really saying is that you're not spending your time and attention properly, such that you are positioning yourself in a way for people to want you to begin with. That's the main issue. That's the lesson of the NI demon. You want it to become an angel? Well, you need to look at having a partnership with it, so that you go to the NI demon and you let it come out. So, like, for example, there's a concept in a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which I think every ISJ man needs to read, and I think ISJ women would also heavily benefit from this book, because it introduces a concept known as, quote, taking yourself out on a date. That is a big deal for NI demon. Okay, if you're working really hard as an ISJ, and here's an example of working hard in your life. This is what I would describe as someone who's spending attention on themselves, not everybody else. These are ISJs who constantly count their calories, protein, carbohydrates, and fat every single day. Having that tracked in MyFitnessPal, having a food scale to measure their food when they need to, doing barcode scanning on all their food items, etc., and not being lazy about it. And then they might work out twice a week at least. That's all you really need to lose fat, for example. But they're slimming down. Men are getting underneath 15% body fat. Women are getting underneath 20% body fat, etc. And they're doing well for themselves, and from a health standpoint. They're taking care of their health. They are going out of their way to be, to position themselves to make them as desirable as possible, and putting in that additional effort, right? Effort is putting their effort in the right place, putting their attention and effort and their strength in the right place, basically. That sounds like a very responsible person. And then they actually go out of their way to go out and get outside of their comfort zone and do something for themselves. But if they're being really responsible in this area, there's nothing wrong with you going to BJ's Brew House, I don't know, once every 3 months or whatever, and buying yourself a Pizookie and having a nice little, I don't know, pan cookie with some whipped cream at the bar by yourself. It doesn't matter if you're married. Go there and do it. Reward yourself for just being you. It's okay. Do it. It's not that hard, okay? Have self-respect. You have to prove to your INJ superego that you're able to treat yourself every now and then. Because if you don't treat yourself every now and then, the demon's going to come out and it's going to treat itself for like 2 weeks straight. And then all of a sudden you have venereal disease and a cocaine habit. You see what I'm saying? That's what ends up happening. You don't want that in your life. So instead, you got to do what Tom Haverford does in Parks and Rec. Treat yourself. You got to have the treat yourself thing. You got to do it. Like, seriously. And by the way, man, if your wife is, like, not having sex with you and you're an ISJ, kick her to the curb immediately. Go to the Fresh and Fit podcast and, like, look up the episode, your wife not having sex with you or your girl not having sex with you, kick her to the curb. Listen to that episode. It's really eye-opening. I think it would help you out, because, like, for example, men don't really get that much out of a relationship with a woman. They probably only want like maybe 3 things. Women want a bunch of things from men. Certain height, certain weight, makes a certain amount of money, etc. Parentage capabilities, the 3 Ps, which is their potentially their position or their provision, the amount of protection they provide, and whether or not they parentage, etc. Women have a lot of things that they want from men, etc., whereas men only just want, like, basically 3 things from women. it's not much. And sex takes up at least, 30 to 40% of what a man's looking for from a woman anyway. And he's giving all of that to a woman in exchange. You see what I'm saying? So if your woman's not having sex with you, you need to go get yourself an additional woman. You'd be kind of surprised, that if you have sex with another woman because your woman's not having sex with you, how that might actually rekindle your relationship. Don't believe me? Read the book Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel and then tell me I'm full of shit. Because I bet you wouldn't be able to after you read that. So the point is, folks, have some motherfucking self-respect. You ISJs out there, like women included, like you all get so super manipulative because you're unwilling to be honest about what you want. And if you would just allow yourself to be honest with what you want and treat yourself every now and then, your NID would be okay. And in fact, it would be happy to stop lying to you and blaming everybody else about you not being desirable when the reality situation is it's telling you that you aren't desirable because you don't have self-respect, because you're not spending your attention on you, because you are not treating yourself. So that when it gets out, it goes max hedonistic. NI Demon is like, wow, no one wants me, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. The thing is that you have to understand that you doing whatever you want as an NI Demon and doing it in a controlled manner where you're treating yourself every now and then is actually what builds attraction. It actually makes you more desirable by other people to begin with. But if you do it too much and you go super hedonistic and you have a venereal disease and a coke habit after 2 weeks of hedonism, obviously that's too much and no one's going to want that either because you just basically became a trashy person, which is what consistently happens to ISJs. Where they find themselves among trashy people, or they find themselves in trashy situations, or married to trash. They shouldn't do that. They should have self-respect. The problem is, folks, is that the affiliative is pre-programmed to cause ISJs to not have self-respect. Because the affiliative, or society, only wants them to just be reliable little worker bees that are taking advantage, and just little slave robots that just do what they're told. LOL. Even willing to sacrifice their life for the military, for the glory of the military, the glory of the country, because of patriotism, instead of actually allowing themselves to treat themselves every now and then. You don't need anyone's fucking permission to go treat yourself, so just go fucking do it. It's not that hard. You guys work so hard. Of course you deserve to go treat yourself. But here's the thing: you can't allow yourself to be entitled to other people and their time and their attention, okay? You're giving your attention to other people because you're choosing to do so. And just because you choose to give your attention to other people doesn't mean that they owe you anything. It doesn't mean that. If you want them to give you attention, you have to tell them that's what you expect in return. You have to be honest with your expectations. You have to be honest with what you want, okay? It's okay for you to have wants. It really is. And you actually having wants and acting on them from time to time is actually, through cognitive orbit, what will empower expert intuition inferior to make it more aspirational so that you're more desirable later. And then all of a sudden, you're putting your effort and your attention into the correct things, putting your faith into the correct things, putting your strength into the correct things. Why do you spend all your time on your spouse and your children when you won't even take yourself to the goddamn gym? Holy shit. You should be putting yourself first and going to the gym. Okay? Seriously. That's what life is supposed to be. This is your life. Are you who you want to be? I dare you to move. I dare you to live. I'm quoting Switchfoot when I say that. Great band, by the way. I highly recommend you listen to that. But that's the point, folks. This is who you are. This is what you're supposed to be. But for some reason, you don't let yourself. Because what? Because of how you're socialized? Because of how you were conditioned by society? Really? The reason why no one wants you is because you're not positioning yourself for greatness. Because you're not willing to have the self-respect to treat yourself. Literally do it. Save some money that you earn and put it aside. Don't put all of your money in your fucking shared bank account with your spouse. I'm sorry, but that's stupid. Don't do it. Literally, don't do it. It's terrible. It's really bad. So keep these things in mind. Make sure that you're going out of your way to avoid this, because if you don't, the lies of the demon will keep coming, and then you'll keep blaming everybody else for your own problem. Instead, take responsibility. Put yourself first. It's okay to be the sun in your own solar system, especially if you're a man. If you're a woman, go out of your way to be feminine. Guess what? ISJ women are pretty feminine. Although ISTJ women are too, like, they buy into the feminism too easily because they're so achievement oriented. Like, Anti-Demon is like, y'all are playing it too safe in your life. Way too fucking safe. And you're so unwilling to take risks. Anti-Demon is trying to get to the point where you will partner up with it so it can become an angelic force. Because it will reward you, severely reward you, if you're willing to take risks. Because, folks, you have to realize you've put in so much effort into trying to be reliable that, yes, you're so reliable. You have so much strength that you're always the last person standing, the last man standing, the last woman standing. Especially ISJ women who live the longest. Well, technically ESJs live the longest, but still, SJ women live the longest overall out of everybody. Okay? You have the ability to take the hits. Obviously, you have the ability. You already know you have the ability to take this. So that's why you're putting up with other people. But why aren't you willing to take the risks to further enrich your own life, regardless of whatever consequences there are? It's trying to tell you you're too afraid of consequences, so let go of your fear of consequences and just take a risk and deal with whatever consequence may come. If you do that, your Anti-Demon will become an Anti-Angel, and it will reward you with a better life, with happiness, consistently. But you have to be willing to take a risk. And sometimes it's risky to go treat yourself. Go treat yourself. Do it. Seriously, do it. Stop allowing everyone else in your life to be entitled to your attention. Guess what, folks? Your Anti-Demon is trying to get you to learn how to be entitled to your own attention. Seriously. Spend your attention on your own. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking Krav Maga right now. I'm learning kayaking. I got myself some river shoes. I'm playing Magic the Gathering again and kicking major ass while doing it, by the way. I'm going to be participating in tournaments very soon. I may even be streaming and having fun doing that, etc. But, like, seriously, guys, you just got to understand, like, there's so much more out there. There's so much going on that a lot of people just don't get it. A lot of people just don't understand the power of taking risks. And yeah, it's bad enough that NI-inferiors out there have a hard time taking risks, but eventually they have to take risks so that they can actually feel like that they've lived a life. But you guys, like, don't... Like, them having regret, that's their SI nemesis, and they freak out. But, an SI hero can live with regret. But the Anti-Demon is trying to tell you, stop living with regret. Stop living with regret. Who fucking cares about the regret? Instead, the only thing you should be regretting is that you're not spending your attention on yourself, that you're not willing to take risks. Because the Anti-Demon's like, boom, if you treat me like an angel, I'll be an angel because you're willing to take some risks and do what you want every now and then I will reward you. Because guess what? You already have the strength to deal with all the negative consequences to begin with. And if there are negative consequences, good. It'll only make you even stronger so that you can take even bigger risks. So you can have an even happier life. You literally are missing out on life. How can you live this way, Anti-Demon? How can you do it? And I get that you're heavily socialized. I get that you're heavily conditioned by society, by your family, by your spouses, even by your children, and by your parents. I don't give a damn. Your church even, because you ISJs love going to church for some reason. But the point is, it's an issue. Stop allowing social norms or social rules or rules in general to determine your life. Break the fucking rules. Take the risks, break the rules. You have to get to the point where, hey, if I'm going to do the time, I may as well do the crime. Anti-Demon is trying to teach you SI heroes that you actually don't have anything to lose. And if you live your life with that in mind, I promise you will reach happiness. I promise you that things in your life will be miraculous. Absolutely miraculous. Just like me with rejecting people. It's becoming really miraculous for myself. And this is what you folks have to learn. This is what you folks need in your life every single day. Okay? I don't know how more succinct I can get it. You don't want to be like some of my coaching clients who hire me when they're 50 years old and they have this huge amount of regret. Nobody wants them. No one invites them to anything. It's because they're not interesting. I constantly tell people that ISTJs are the most boring of all the types. It's because they are the most risk averse. If you are the most risk averse, you are the most boring. You want to be the most interesting person? You want to be the most desirable person? Take some fucking risks. Live a little, okay? You're already strong enough with SI Hero. You're already going to be the last man standing every time. You literally can endure any consequence anyway. So create consequences for yourself as a result of the risks you take so that you can actually enjoy life for once. Instead of being a slave to the system, a slave to society, a slave to your family, a slave to your church, a slave to your community, a slave to your job, a slave to the military. Have some self-respect. Please. Wake up. Take risks. Allow yourself to take risks. This is me, C.S. Joseph, giving you permission to take risks in your life. Take risks, regardless of the consequences, especially even if you're like asking out somebody of the opposite sex. If they reject you, good. Good. If they don't want you, good. Wouldn't you rather be with somebody who actually wants you? Spend time on those people. Think about those people. Think about those things. Otherwise, you're just turning them into an idol. You're putting them on a pedestal. You're literally worshiping the person. That's you orbiting them, not them orbiting you. Are you out of your mind? You can't do that. Like, seriously, folks, have some self-respect. Take the risks. You can take whatever consequence or whatever hit will come as a result of you taking a risk. Because here's the situation. If you don't take risks, Anti-Demon, out of all of the demon functions, it will go postal. And you will go max hedonism. And you may lose your entire life within the span of a week or two. I've been there with some of my coaching clients where they literally burned down their entire life in the span of 2 weeks because they literally went postal. They literally went crazy because they have been so risk averse and playing it safe their whole life, and they're miserable for it. No one wants them. No one invites them to anything. No one's willing to stick around. Look at Dominic Toretto. He's an ISTJ. He takes the risks constantly, and because of that, he has people who are die-hard wanting him and always sticking around, always including him in on everything, always sticking around with him on everything and all his crazy schemes and everything crazy that he does with the life that he lives. You want to be like him? Well, you need to shed your risk averseness and actually live life. It doesn't matter. If you taking risks leads to a divorce, good for you. That's a toxic person you don't want in your life. If they're not going to let you take risks, why would you want someone like that in your life? Are you a slave? If you taking risks gets you kicked out from your church, good. Go experiment, guys. Take the risks. Treat yourself. Treat yourself with risks. Okay? You can take the hits. Do it. And I promise you, your life will be happy and you will have miracles. And you'll have such amazing stories to tell, which will cause you to be even more desirable later. Take the risks, folks. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. Take it from an anti-nemesis, and I worry about taking risks, but when I do, the rewards are awesome. They really, really are. And especially you guys. You guys have such strength and such endurance and such perseverance. You could take even bigger risks than I can and gain even greater reward. And that is what your anti-angel is trying to tell you. Live life, damn it. So that you too can be happy. And I promise you, if you do this, you will. I promise. If you found this lecture useful, helpful, educational, or enlightening, please leave a comment below for this episode. That would be awesome. I'd love to get your feedback. Thank you all for being an awesome audience. Thank you all for just being amazing. Anyway, folks, with all that being said, I'll see you guys tonight.